your own soul, but you feel like you're the one who doesn't fit in because you don't possess the same magic powers as everyone else. However, you are still the best swordsman that anyone's ever seen. The story begins with our main protagonist, Ikki Kurogane, who is a student at a school for people who are born with magic, and he starts narrating about his life at school. He explains that when you're born, you're either gifted or ungifted, and those who are gifted are raised up in the pecking order of life, a place that the ungifted feel like they would never get to reach. Although Ikki is a popular student, he is still looked down upon by all the other students for not possessing the same kind of magic powers like everyone else. We see Ikki summon his sword, and begins to explain that those who are known as blazers can forge a weapon made from their soul and use it to wield extraordinary power, and the blazers who are approved by the international organization are known as Magic Knights, which Ikki aspires to become one day. After some sword training, he returns to his dorm, where he accidentally saw a girl changing called Stella, and she also turns out to be a princess of another country. Before she even said anything, he quickly showed her his six-pack to make it fair. However, Ikki's actions angered Stella and she begins to rage, and calls him all types of names. But he instantly apologizes and said he couldn't look away as she was too beautiful. After he confesses, she calms down and immediately regains her composure. After, the school's director came in and told Stella there's not another F-rated student in the school for Ikki to partner up with, as he's so weak, so instead she has to be roommates with Ikki. Ikki is shocked that a princess is going to be his new roommate, and asks the headmistress how it's even possible for the lowest ranked student to be partnered with a top ranked student. This then makes Stella even more mad, and protested to the head teacher for a different roommate, as she wants to be the main owner of the room. So the headmistress then proposed they have a duel, and the winner will become the owner of the room, and the loser will also have to obey the victor's words for the rest of their life. The other students hear about the duel match as the news starts to spread throughout the whole school, so everyone heads over to the training arena to witness the lowest ranked student go against the highest rank. Before they start, the headmistress explains the rules of the duel and the match begins. Ikki summons his sword and gets ready for combat, and so does Stella. But when Stella summons her sword, she releases a huge tornado of fire, called Dragon's Breath, which burns at around 3000 degrees Celsius. She runs to attack him, but he manages to dodge her first attack. After seeing him dodge the move, she tells Ikki he's lucky because if the fire touched him he would have been burned alive. Even though Ikki cannot use magic, and Stella being much stronger than him, he's still one of the best when it comes to swordsmanship. She starts to get nervous and can't believe that a low-ranked student is able to still be this strong. While dueling, he explains to Stella that no one was ever there to teach him, so he taught himself by studying the techniques of the high-ranked blazers and is able to use their own tactics against them, known as situational analysis. But even so, Ikki's sword still doesn't have magic, so he was unable to break Stella's fire armor. After seeing his swordman skills, she begins to charge up her next attack, and tells Ikki she's going to end him right now. But he still didn't give up that easily, and starts to narrate that even though he doesn't have the gifts to be a magical knight, the vow that makes him who he is the reason he never gives up, and still believes in the weakest beating the strongest, and he somehow starts to move at the speed of light, dodging all the moves made by Stella, and ends up winning the duel using his final attack. This shocks all the other students. However, after doing this move, his body would fall to the ground in a state of exhaustion, since he can only use the skill once a day. Later on, Stella is recovering from the duel match and she's visited by the school's head teacher, and Stella tells the teacher that she had forgotten what it feels like to lose a match as it's been that long since she's lost. She asks the teacher to tell her the truth about Ikki and why he was so strong in the fight but is still considered a rank F student. So she tells her that all blazers are ranked by their magical abilities and not by their combat skills, swordplay or physical prowess, and due to this, they can't get the exact evaluation on Ikki's strength. So even though Ikki's known to have incredible swordsmanship, he is still ranked the lowest at the school. Stella goes to visit Ikki while he was recovering from the match, and after they agree to get along more and become friends. The next day, they decide to train together and Stella notices that Ikki is a lot happier than normal, and asks him why, to which he replies, saying it's because his sister will be starting her first day of school here and he hasn't seen her for many years. Later on, they head to class where the new teacher introduces herself as Yuri. She tells everyone about the upcoming event called the 7-Star Sword Art Festival, where 6 people with the strongest abilities will be chosen to represent the school. During break time, a girl ran up to Ikki and told him she's his biggest fan. Stella asks him who she is, and he replies saying he doesn't have a clue who she is. But she introduces herself as Kagami, and said that she saw him fight in the duel against the princess. This made Stella unhappy and she storms off. Ikki quickly ran after Stella, and there he's greeted by his long-lost sister, called Shizuku, and before he could even react, she suddenly kisses him and told him that this is the way foreigners greet their loved ones. All the students are surprised, and this also made Stella jealous, so she begins to argue with Shizuku over Ikki. Shizuku asks her what kind of relationship they have, but after arguing, Stella accidentally told everyone that Ikki is her master, and she is his servant. This caused everyone around them to misunderstand the direction of their perversion. This makes Shizuku draw for her sword and they both begin to duel each other. After the school punishes them both for having an argument like this on the school grounds. But during their time spent in detention they begin to argue once again. Then Stella tells her she doesn't understand why she's so obsessed with her own brother, to which Shizuku replies saying she could never understand, and accidentally tells Stella about Ikki's past, and how his whole family treated Ikki like he never even existed. She then leaves and visits her new dorm to be greeted by her new partner called Alice. After hearing what Shizuku just said about Ikki, Stella then went to ask Ikki if his family ever treated him like he never existed. He is surprised she said this, and then admits he was looked down upon by the rest of his family, and then tells her a story about his past. He asks Stella if she knew about the legendary samurai known as Ryoma Kurogane, his grandfather. She replies saying she knows who it is, as he was the hero who led Japan in the last World War. He told her that he is the man he aspires to be. He then goes on to tell her about his family, which are known to produce only the best blazers in history. But when he was born they found out that Ikki wasn't able to use magic, unlike the rest of the family members who are extremely gifted. Due to this he was abandoned by his entire family and treated like he was invisible. So one day he decided to run away from home, and started walking until he got caught in a snowstorm in the mountains. He was completely hopeless and lost and thought he was going to die. But his grandfather appeared and was there to save him. He knew Ikki was unable to use magic, so instead he trained him the ways of being a samurai, and the art of swordsmanship, and ever since then he promised to himself that he would become a strong person just like his grandfather. However, the Kurogane family still never acknowledges his strength, and even pressured the school to prevent him from graduating. The next day, Ikki and Stella practice their combat skills by doing some sword training, just like the rest of the school, until they are greeted by Shizuku and her new roommate. They all decide to go shopping at the mall district. They don't really get along well and hardly talk, but then they all went to a restaurant to get some food. While in the restaurant, both Ikki and Alice went to the restroom to wash their hands. Suddenly a group of terrorists appear, and they hear some people in the restroom and begin to attack them. But Alice uses her shadow magic power and is able to create portals in order to save themselves. They use his shadow magic to teleport to the security office and take a look at the hidden cameras, and they saw that Shizuku and Stella were captured by them, and try to get help from the woman at the front desk. She tells them that the police are on the way and that she can see that the masked men have the people surrounded. Afterwards, a boy tried to attack one of the men, so he kicked him and starts to shoot, but Stella saves the boy by unleashing her flame armor skill, so the bullets couldn't get through. Then the leader of the gang walks in and introduces himself as Bishu. He taunts Stella, then she retaliates and begins to attack him, but he uses something called the Judgment's Ring, which can suck the magic power from a blazer and release the magic it absorbed against them. He tells Stella that if she wants to help the hostages she has to take her clothes off. She starts to do it, but Ikki sees this and can't stand what Bishu's making her do, and went to try and save her, but Alice stopped him from intervening by using a magic power called Shadow Bind. Holding Ikki completely still, he told Ikki that he must have faith in his sister who is currently building a magical barrier. We see her finish the barrier, and creates an unbreakable wall of water surrounding the civilians. The gang of thieves start shooting the wall, but at this moment she signals Ikki to attack the gang, and he uses the Itashura skill, enabling him to slow time so he can analyze the situation and take down the boss. He manages to dodge all their bullets and get close to the boss and take him down by removing his judgment ring. But all of a sudden another member of the terrorists were hiding in the group of hostages. But before she could react, a student used his invisible skill and easily knocked her down. His name is Kirihara, and is a blazer represented by the school who competed in the 7-Star Sword Art Festival last year. He'll also be Ikki's opponent in the next qualifying match. The first day of the festival begins, and Ikki is seen watching a recording of Kirihara and studying his ways of fighting. Stella saw him watching the clips and told him that his ability called Area Invisible allows him to completely hide everything, including his appearance, sense of smell, and any noise he makes. But Ikki told Stella that everything will be okay, and that he will make sure to find a way on how to defeat him. Later on, Ikki saw Alice while he was out for a run, and Alice asked him if he knew who Kirihara is, and Ikki replies, telling him a story about Kirihara and how Ikki's family were close with the previous director of the school. Due to this, his own family tried to get Ikki removed from the school, as they didn't want to be embarrassed by the reputation Ikki would bring them for being a member of the Kurogane family without having any magic. To try and get him expelled, they used Kirihara to bully Ikki and try to get him to act out so he would get expelled from the school. But Ikki didn't retaliate. The fight between the two begins, and they introduce Kirihara, who is very popular. But Ikki also has a lot of fans supporting him, because he won the match against Princess Stella, who is the highest rank. Ikki's fighting style is situational analysis, but this time his opponent is an expert in invisible magic, so Kirihara is considered Ikki's #1 enemy. The battle begins, and the arena is turned into a digital forest made of trees. At this moment, Kirihara uses his area invisible ability and activates the Hunter Forest skill set to attack Ikki. His skill allows him to quickly evade and surprise the opponent using his arrows, but Ikki manages to deflect the arrows and counter them by finding where the origin of the arrow's location is and charging directly towards it to find Kirihara. Due to this, Kirihara uses his more advanced magic skills and decides to make the arrows invisible. And by doing this, Ikki won't be able to detect them before they hit him. After receiving many arrows, Ikki starts to get angry and frustrated. And at this moment, the announcer mocks him for being a rank F, and the other students start laughing and begin shouting that he will never win the 7-star tournament. But Stella remembers what Ikki said about promising to find a way to defeat him. But he takes too many arrows and falls down to the ground. Everyone laughs and cheers on Kirihara, and they call Ikki the worst one over and over again. Stella yells at the crowd and tells them that he is still as great as his opponent, and begs Ikki not to give up and show everyone his true abilities. After hearing her scream out to continue, he thanks her for the motivation and then proceeds to remember the speed and the sequence of Kirihara's shots, and calculates the timing it takes for them to reach him. And by doing this, he can now counter the invisible arrows. The announcer tells everyone he's using his skill called Blade Steel, where he can observe and adopt the techniques of any blazer's powers and use them against them. However, this time he used a greater version of this skill known as Perfect Vision. And after Ikki becomes the Hunter of the Forest, which is the skill used by Kirihara. When Kirihara saw him do this, he began to feel fear and begged Ikki to spare his life. Kirihara tries one last move before begging for his life, and pleads with Ikki to stop the fight and asks him to be friends, and at that moment Ikki stops at the last second, but the finishing move he built up created a massive explosion. However, he did manage to stop his blade right as it touched his face. If you guys would like